Good morning, fellow Toastmasters. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Gotta wake up. I started 1 minute early, so could all rise for the pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of
America,
and
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God,
indivisible.
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our inspirator today is Mike Licata. Can you come on down? You're the next contestant on the Toastmaster show.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning, fellow Toastmasters. My inspiration will be short this morning. I want to wish everyone have a good weekend, have a good week going forward. And I want to thank everyone for joining us online and both in the room. Mr. President.
Few announcements as per our usual scenario here. We are going to go into the YMCA if you haven't heard. That was voted on last week and in the officers meetings. April 1st is the tentative date to go. And Len and Beth are arranging the money to purchase carts and different things. It was also approved by the membership last meeting and the officers meeting. So that is being organized now. So that's exciting. The YMCA, it's not too far from here. I did talk to the executive director and since our non-for-profit status, said there was no additional paperwork to be needed. So, and there's room for all our equipment, as Len had already told us in the past. So it's just a matter of getting everything together. Hopefully we can pull that all off, and we believe we can. Division contest, March 4th, Saturday, 9 through 12. Our contestants, Dave Licata and Tom Helbline, will be competing. So definitely zoom in. There's been some messages that went around, I think, on Instagram and Facebook, I believe. If you need the links, we can make that happen for you. Kate, is Kate online? Do not see Kate. Okay. Kate attended a networking event on Monday. Spread the word of Toastmasters. I was going to come as well up here in Lockport, but unfortunately the snow got in my way. It took me an hour to get from work to my house, so it's definitely going to take me another hour to get here. So she took the reins there and hopefully spread the word about Toastmasters. We did have an area club area director visit last week. She sent a summary. She said we are far exceeding expectations in the groups. So we are setting the bar, and some of you may not feel like that in comparison to some of the other groups. We just need some new members, that's all. Everything else is going well. Any other announcements from anybody else?
Good morning, Mr. President. I am Toastmaster next week. The only roles I need filled are the inspiration, the word master, the master grammarian, general evaluator, and the timer. Everybody else is off the hook, at least until I get there. So we will see everyone next week.
Okay, that explains the schedule. Thank you for explaining. Appreciate that. Without further ado.
Gerald?
Oh, there is more announcements?
Yes. Sorry, I'm on Zoom this morning. This is Beth. Two things. One, you and I kind of talked about a little bit via email. There is a new function coming out that allows individual members to pay national themselves. It would be something we would have to vote on. At this point, I am recommending we do not do that because, in my opinion, it makes double the job for the treasurer, because then the treasurer would have to keep track of who paid national and still collect dues local. And I think that would be more difficult than just collecting it ourselves and, paying. So I recommend that we hold off on that. Part of the reason I'm also recommending, I got an email finally about an order I put in from the store. It was the weirdest email I think I've ever received. It said that okay, you have your gift certificates and this is what you ordered and this is how much you owe. And the next paragraph said, oh, but our system has a problem. So we're not able to collect dual money. Like they can't take the gift certificates and take a PayPal transfer in the same order. Why did you just tell me everything was okay if you can't do this? So I will have to call the woman today because it didn't make any sense to me whatsoever. I sent it to Sylvia. She thought the same thing. It was just a strange email. So they tell you the store is open. Oh, but you have to do it our way because we really don't have our act together yet. I don't know. Don't open the store if you can't do gift certificates too, or don't give gift certificates if they can't be used. It was just weird. So I will find out. But if they don't have the store together, I have my doubts on whether they really can handle individual national payments and then take.
If I may
Yeah.
make a motion to follow the treasurer's advice for the time and let her decide when the time is that we might be able to change. If not, we stay with what she says. That's my motion.
Do I have a second? Jill Roaring is seconding. I don't know if we need a motion, but it's fine. We're doing one. Okay. Any discussion, any more questions? Beth kind of laid it out a little bit. It's gonna make her job easier. I see nothing wrong with it myself, but somebody else might have an issue. Okay, call to vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes. Okay, let's get this meeting rolling. Our Toastmaster today is Carol online. Carol, the show is yours.
Good morning, Mr. President and fellow Toastmasters. Last month, in February, we celebrate President's Day for George Washington and Abraham Lincoln, who are probably the most well-known. However, I decided to look at the month of March and see if we have some presidents who were born in March. And we actually do have 4 of them. And my theme, of course, is March presidents. I think I would like to start with a toast that no matter who our leaders are, that the Republic will always stand.
Here.
Now, I would like to introduce the job holders. Our word master is Nancy Rose. What is your word for the day?
Good morning, Madam Toastmaster and fellow Toastmasters. The word of the day is invigorating. Invigorating is the adjective, and the verb is invigorate. Its definition is to make someone feel healthy and strong, and used in a sentence is, I followed my doctor's recommendation to take an invigorating walk every day. So it needs to be used in table topics, and I hope everyone uses it throughout the day and also feels invigorated through the day. Back to you, Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you. Our master grammarian is Dave Licata today.
Good morning, Madam Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and our guests. My duty is to keep track of the ahs and ums, things that make us sound like we are not too sure of ourselves. They are distracting. And if you're trying to sell an idea or be a leader, leave those ahs and ums behind. I'm also a grammarian, which will be a challenge for me, but I'll do my best. And on the ahs and ums, I can't believe how fortunate I am because Carol Ann is Toastmaster today, so maybe she'll double her efforts on her ahs and ums. And it would be glorious to say that you had 4 today, Carol Ann, instead of saying Carol had more than 5. So God love you, Carol. God love you. Thank you, Madam Toastmaster.
Okay, as of last evening, I didn't have a quote master. However, what I'm going to do today, unless somebody did sign up for it, is mention some quotes from the presidents that I am talking about. We have a jester today. It's Dr. Gerald Stevens. Do you have a joke for us?
Being a jester for presidents is a field of rich fodder, I'm going to say. Because there's definitely a lot of political anecdotes and things that presidents say that are funny. They may not be March presidents, but I don't care. I just picked a couple that I thought were cool. Ronald Reagan. I'm not worried about the deficit. It's big enough to take care of itself. Another one from Ronald Reagan. Politics is supposed to be the second oldest profession. I've come to realize it bears a close resemblance to the first. And the first is prostitution, just so I didn't know. Barack Obama. There are a few things in life harder to find, more important to keep than love. Well, love and a birth certificate. And Jimmy Carter. My esteem has gone up substantially. It's very nice now when people wave to me and they use all their fingers. I love them. I did want to do one thing before I give up the lectern, if I might, Madam Toastmaster, for our table topics master. In the room, we have Sylvia Baptiste, Steve Smith, Jill Roaring, Nancy Ferry, Jackie Kenny, Nancy Rose, Mike Licata, Tracy Farrell, Dave Licata, and myself, and Len. So that's back to you, Madam Toastmaster.
Okay, our next job holder is our timer, who is Jen Zapla today. Can you tell us about your timing duties?
Yes, I will be your timer today. Timing is very important in life and in Toastmasters, so be sure to look out for my backgrounds today. I will show you the green background when you've hit your minimum time, the yellow background when you should be wrapping up, and your red background when I am pulling the cane in front of you. So that will be for table topics at 1:30, 1:45 and 2. For speeches, that will be hopefully 5, 6, and 7 minutes, depending on if anyone tells me otherwise. And for evaluations, that will be at 2, 2.5, and 3 minutes. And is Carol Ann still available? Or should I turn it over to our president, Gerald?
It appears Carol has frozen up. So as soon as she comes back in, we'll obviously turn the meeting back over to her. But we will assist in the meantime. Our next role holder is the quiz master, Mike Florio. Please tell us.
Mr. President, thank you. And Carol Ann, wherever you are in Zoom land. I will try to invigorate your minds with a quiz at the end of the meeting while I listen closely and come up with some questions to test your memory. Mr. President.
Thank you, Mike. And the next part of the meeting, I'm sure will invigorate us all, will be table topics. David Jones stepped up, I noticed. So David, do you have some questions for us today?
I do, Mr. President. Thank you. And good morning, fellow Toastmasters. I was kind of confused about the theme, therefore I just went to questions based on history that happened today. Some of the questions will be challenging, but I'd like to start with Phil, if you're available. I believe you are.
I am.
All right. Today in history, 1933, King Kong had its world's premiere. When you were younger, did you see it, and what type of movies invigorated you as a child?
Oh. Mr. Topics Master, I did see the old King Kong and it did invigorate me. And the new one was nowhere near what it was. And let me tell you what happened this day in history back in the 1950s. There was a lot of snow. And we had an idea. Pete Sharkey was on crutches. His father was a policeman. Holly was there. I was there. We had a whole bunch of us. We all lived right around there. Well, the packing was great, as it should be in March. We built the best snowman you ever saw, right in the middle of Church and Monroe, right on the big old, the sewer put thing. And we built about 100 snowballs. So we put snowballs at between corners. So it was like a fort. Then, of course, we saw a car. We took off and hid. And of course, that first car that came by was a policeman. So we said, okay, we got to see what's going to happen here. We don't know. But let me tell you what happened. He got out, looked at it, went around and tried to push on it. It was so well built, he couldn't push it over. His car into it. And he did. He got stuck. Okay. 3 police cars later, it was time to go home. We all knew every back alley, every which way to get home. We got home. Anything happen out there? Nah, everything's great. Mass the next day. Everybody knew about it. All our fathers went out for their smoke during the sermon. They came in laughing like heck. The policeman's kids and everybody, myself included, were related to a police officer. Mr. Topics Master.
Thank you, Toastmaster Phil. Next up, Thomas, I believe you're available. This will be an interesting question for you. Today in 1917, Puerto Rico became a territory. That was 106 years ago. Do you have any thoughts on whether or why it should or should not be a state after 106 years?
Thank you, Mr. Table Topics Master, for that question. Good morning to my fellow Toastmasters and Carol. Puerto Rico, I did actually physically visit. And I would say it is probably a definite candidate for statehood. There is no reason I don't see why we don't want to do it, other than having to replace, I don't know, 6 or 7 million flags around the country. And we'd have to, of course, reevaluate the Senate and the Congress. Two seats in each, I'm assuming, would be what would happen. The representation that they can then sway certain things to help their people. 106 years ago. That's amazing. I'm invigorated by the thought that we're going to expand states in the future. I'm hoping that the United States starts doing that. Finding countries anywhere around the world that want to become U.S. states, whoever they are. Maybe part of Canada wants to succeed and become a US state. Maybe parts of Mexico. Maybe Jamaica. That would be great to have that as a state. Maybe Cuba will fall and then become a state. Maybe we can expand. I don't think that we should just limit it to Puerto Rico. I think we should be able to go above and beyond that. And I find it invigorating that the thought of adding states to the 50 would be a pretty good idea. Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster, for that difficult question.
You're welcome. Thank you, Toastmaster Thomas. And Margot, I believe you're available.
Yep, I guess it's all online today, huh?
Yeah, I think everybody else has the roles. Today in 1904, Theodore Seuss Geisel was born, also known as Dr. Seuss.
Mhm.
What books as a kid invigorated your creative mind that you really enjoyed as a child?
What a wonderful question, invigorating question to make me think back in the past. Well, my favorite book as a child was a book called The Little House. And the story of The Little House, for those who are unfamiliar, is a little house existed, and all of a sudden, a city built up around this little house. And the little house was very sad until someone came and took the little house and moved it out to the country. Now, for those who don't know, I actually am from outside of Albany. So I lived in the suburbs and watched it build out until I went to college, and I married somebody who took me out to the country. So here I am with this book that I enjoyed as a child, and yet I never knew it was actually going to be the blueprint for the rest of my life. Who knew? But I also like the question you asked, Thomas, for this reason. My youngest, David, just returned from Puerto Rico, and they were doing an agricultural tour. And his description of ag actually got me thinking about how we do things in this country. Our farm is 500 acres. The biggest farm he saw in Puerto Rico, 15 acres. So he was describing to me all the various things that would happen on the farms there that they saw versus what we do here. So here I am with a book that took me out to the country, and now I have my children teaching me more about country life and agriculture. Life is good, Mr. Table Topics Master.
Thank you, Toastmaster Margot. And I believe that's it. I was going to ask Eric a question, but he is driving. Today is Daniel Cross's or Craig's birthday. He was at 6 James Bond. I'm sure he had some thoughts on that. But can I get a Wordmaster report, please?
Thank you. I'm going to double check with Bill because I was slightly interrupted. He used it. Okay, all three candidates used it. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. Yes, I'm going to stay away from the word of the day for the rest of the day. And can I get a timers report, please?
Yes, all three table topics contestants did come in for time. Phil did use the buffer. However, everyone else made it within the allotted time frame. Thank you, Mr. Table Topics Master.
Thank you, Toastmaster Jennifer. And back to you, Toastmaster of the day.
Any sign of Carol online? Anybody see her online?
Yes, but she's muted.
Carol, you're muted. Unmute yourself, please.
I am here.
Okay, back to you.
Okay. Let's see, will the vote be coming up next?
We're up to the point where we're doing the evaluator 1 and speaker 1. But you could definitely do some filler.
No, I will talk a little about our presidents. The last that I was checking is the fact that I didn't have evaluators for speaker 1 and 3. So I do hope that people will step up for those two speeches. We have the speakers, but need more evaluators. I'd appreciate someone stepping up.
Glenn is listed as evaluator 1.
All right. And we will need one for our our third speaker, who is Tracy. To get on with our presidents of March, the first one is President James Madison. He was the 4th president. He served from 1809 to 1817. He was born in Belle Grove Plantation in Virginia. He is known as the father of the Constitution. He had experience authoring the Federalist Papers and also the Bill of Rights. Much was attributed to him. He was a slave owner who never freed his slaves. During his time as president, the Louisiana Purchase took place. Actually, it was when he was the Secretary of State. And the War of 1812 took place, and he was very much in favor of states' rights. And he did write, was responsible for assisting with writing the Bill of Rights, which is the first amendments of the Constitution. And he also wanted the votes based on population. Florida was annexed during his time, and industrialization was taking place. He went to Princeton University. Many of the Virginia presidents went to William and Mary, but he felt that it was just a healthier atmosphere in Princeton. And as many of you have heard, his wife Dolly, when the White House was being attacked, did save the Gilbert Stuart painting of George Washington. James Madison was the smallest president at 5'4", 100 pounds. He died in Montpelier, which was his plantation at the time, on June 8, 1936. The second, and I would like to say his quote, "The truth is that all men having power ought to be mistrusted." Andrew Jackson was our 7th president from 1829 to 1837. He was born in Wax House, which was on the border of North Carolina and South Carolina. So often each state is claiming that his birth took place in their state. And that was on March 15th, 1767. He became famous as Old Hickory when he was a general during the War of 1812. Now, he was responsible for our victory at the Battle of New Orleans, although a month earlier, the Treaty of Ghent was signed, which ended the war prior to that battle. But no one knew about it. He was a prosecuting attorney and a judge of what did become the Supreme Court. And on the negative side of his presidency, the Trail of Tears took place, where he was in favor of the Indian Removal Act, and he spent, he actually sent 15,000 Cherokees from the southeast out to Oklahoma on a treacherous journey. A quarter of them died. And he died in Nashville, June 8th, 1845. And his quote is, "I was born in a storm, and a calm does not suit me." I think at this time we'll proceed with the speeches, and we'll have speaker number one, and who is Les Robinson, and guess our and he'll be evaluated by Len. Len, what can you tell us about Les's speech?
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters. I just texted Les and he wouldn't send me his details on his speech, so I think there's some confusion going on here still. I can just do a general evaluation, as I've done many times before, or if Les can just quickly chat to me the details. I'm sorry for the confusion on the speakers evaluators. I didn't confirm my role as evaluator as timely as I should have, but I'm prepared to evaluate Lester, and I'm sure it'll be a great speech. And again, if he wants to text me, or I'll just do a general evaluation, and I'm sure that'll work out fine. Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you. Now our speaker number one, I would like to introduce Les Robinson. And unfortunately, I don't have a title. Les.
Well, before I get started, thought I was the evaluator today for Tracy's speech, and I'm on the speaker role, which I just noticed that I'm on both. So, as a true Toastmaster style, I will have a speech, but I have not practiced it. I do not have a pathway, but I will do a speech. So if you just give me 1 second here, it will be a 5-minute speech about personal presentation. As a Toastmaster, very simple, presentation is a very important skill that falls into your life, your career, and presentations. And this is ironically, I have been redoing my long-term care presentations to different groups and different people. And what I have found out is that by being in Toastmasters, you find the mistakes when you are doing your presentation, number one, in front of the group. Number two, and very important, is you realize, and I'm not saying because it's part of an but it's part of the speech, is Dave Licata and different people in the organization, very simple and very easy, have drilled down the importance of avoiding Okay, now, one of my friends had just gotten laid off, and I was talking to him and I said, you really need to join Toastmasters, because one of the important things in Toastmasters is it avoiding the ahs. And he kind of said, you are right. I said, if you'd like to join. Usually 2 things happen. Number one, you're here for a short period of time, you get your job, you leave, or you're here for a short period of time and then you stay. So that is the key factor of number one on doing Toastmaster speeches. Number two is what you always do is really weird is you have an outline here. What you generally want to do is get your key points out. You want to reinforce that, have a story, and tie it together. And one of the best storytellers, actually there's 2 of them, is either Phil Russell or Dave Licata. And I have listened to them over the year, how they use the alliteration, or that's what I'm looking for, is how they pump up the story to really get the point across. And like Phil did at the end, was like everybody was laughing after church, and everybody knew that what happened was very simple. They knew that they did the snowman. But the important thing is when you do the presentation, is you want to be able to push whatever point it is across the table. If it's a point to join Toastmasters, to get a law changed, to deal with your family. And that is the important thing of Toastmasters, that they teach you the correct way of doing a presentation, and it makes you a more effective speaker. Now, as being a more effective speaker, this is a win-win across the board, because the more effective speaker you are, the better you present. And I can honestly say, the better I present, the more money I make. But the important thing is how to accent, use your words, how to be able to, and this is a prime example, be in the middle of a sheet where you thought you were doing the evaluation for Tracy and you're doing a speech. And of all the years of being taught how to formulate, how to run everything through your head, you're able to do a speech right from the get-go with really just looking around at your table and saying, hey, what can I do this on for 5 to 7 minutes without repeating yourself. Another thing is, when you're working a group, okay, Toastmasters really helps to do this, because you develop the eye contact. And when I work a group, I go right across from right to left. And if someone asks a question, I zero in on the eye contact. And that's very, very important, because if you don't make that relationship in that presentation, it doesn't matter what you're doing, there is no connection with your audience. And once you have no connection with your audience, all they're hearing is blah, 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 blah. But making that connection is a win-win. And then coming around, when you are critiquing in your presentations, at a meeting, in life, this is the big one, is the evaluation. I really can honestly say the evaluations will help everybody in this organization, because it makes you, number one, think and how you're going to present. Number two, you don't want to really get people against you, because once people get against you, they will wait and wait until the right time that they can sit there and torpedo you to fail. And I use this all the time at work. I have situations where I talk to the person and I say, hey, this is great. We had a small little problem, but I think once we get through it together, it's gonna be a win-win across the board. And I would say 9 out of 10 times, people work with me and we don't have a problem. So it turns out to be a win-win. So at the end of the day, being a Toastmaster helps you with your speeches, helps you with your vocal variety, helps you avoid to say makes you a better evaluator, and at the end of the day makes you a more valuable speaker and a better, more effective communicator in the community. Thank you.
Now, our second speaker today is Jill Roaring, and she will be evaluated by Nancy Ferry. Nancy.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster. I'm sure glad that you're back here. Jill is doing a speech from the Pathways Project Persuasive Influence Level 3. Her goal is to inspire her audience. The purpose of this project is for Jill to practice writing and delivering a speech that inspires others. The purpose of this speech, again, is for her to inspire us as her audience. And Madam Toastmaster, do you have her title?
I do.
All right. Would you like to introduce her?
Yes. I'd like to introduce Jill Roaring for our second speaker, and her title is A Warm Embrace. Jill.
Okay, yeah, that's working now. Good morning, fellow Toastmasters. I know by the nature of everybody here that most of us are involved in some sort of volunteer projects. That's just our nature. I am involved at my church in making quilts. That's one. We make them for various purposes. This one was considered a baby quilt. Usually used to go to Project Linus, which is a summary organization around here. It goes to like Children's Hospital and the other hospitals that are around here. And also it goes to even places like the YWCA for children that are in battered situations, that sort of thing. We also make them for hospice, which that's a little bit smaller quilt. We make them for military veterans, which these ones usually go to the VA hospital. This one is a Coast Guard themed one. And then the biggies, which these things are huge. This one is not done yet, but I'm just going to hold it out to show you the size. Like I said, they're big. These ones go for missions. Generally, they go worldwide. They go to a central clearinghouse in Baltimore, where they get shipped around the world. And if you watch the TV coverage sometimes of things like the earthquake that just happened in Turkey, and you see the relief efforts, you'll see quilts hanging from these people's tents and everything. And that might be some of the quilts that were made in Wilson or someplace else around the world. It is a very fulfilling mission, but it takes a lot of work to make these quilts. We actually start out with fabric, and it doesn't take a lot of sewing experience for some aspects of this project. We start out with fabric that somebody has to cut into squares. These ones here are pretty much all made with 6-inch squares. And then once all the squares are cut up, and there's an assortment of squares, someone who feels like it will put them on a table in a specified size area, which the big monster quilt that I showed you is 11 by 14 squares. And they pattern them out and try and make something beautiful out of them. The mission ones probably do not take as much to make them. We don't really care about them being beautiful theoretically because they're going for warmth. But we usually do try. We want them to be something beautiful for people. After they are patterned out on the tables and they're stacked in the stack I showed you, and then somebody, this is one of the things that I tend to do there, is we start sewing. And we sew all these 6-inch squares into tops. Then another person, then after they're sewed into tops, we actually have to do what we call assembling them. And we have the top. Inside there is the quilt backing, which I can't really show you because of the way this is pinned. Oh, there we go. There's quilt backing. And then the batting, the part that makes it warm. That gets sewed around the outside. We trim it, we flip it inside out, and then we do a top stitch around the outside. After it's top stitched around the outside, it's hard to see on these ones, but another person actually takes and does what they call the tying, which every so often on the quilt, you tie a little square into it. Instead of quilting the traditional form of machine quilting or hand stitching all over thing, we do a quick, just a few ties. Because of that, we can do a lot of quilts quickly, depending on how many people are working and how much people want to take them home and work on them at home too. We have somewhat of a regular assembly line process. Unfortunately, some of the big quilts, I've timed it out. It takes me about 3 hours to sew a top together from that stack of little squares. And that's if nothing goes wrong with the sewing machine. Or with my realization that I totally messed up putting this thing together and I got to cut it apart. But that's the way it works. And the other people specialize in doing the other parts. And it's all very fulfilling. But we're always looking for more people. So if anybody wants to come to Wilson on Wednesday mornings and comes to my church and enjoy some fellowship and fun and assembling things for a charity, we'd love to have you. Thank you, Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you, Jill. Our third speaker today is Tracy Farrell. Now, Les, you mentioned that you felt your assignment was to evaluate Tracy. And Les, are you prepared to evaluate Tracy?
Yes, I am.
Okay, thank
I'm
you.
invigorated to
Actually,
evaluate Tracy.
Actually, Carol, I sent you a chat. Michael Licata has volunteered to evaluate Tracy, so Lex doesn't have to do double duty.
Okay.
Mike, want to come up here and explain Tracy's goals and objectives, please?
Sorry about the confusion, Madam Toastmaster. I just felt it makes less job, a little bit less hectic this morning to do full double duty, so I will talk about Tracy's speech. She is doing the Pathways Level 2 on understanding your leadership style. The purpose of this project is for the member to identify his or her primary leadership style or styles. The purpose of this speech is for the member to share some aspect of his or her primary leadership style or discussion leadership styles in general. Madam Timer, the time is 5 to 7 minutes, and I do believe you have the title Madam Toastmaster.
Yes, I do. The title of Tracy's speech is What's Your Type? Tracy.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster. What's your type? My project's really to look at management versus leadership. And we all know management is kind of checking the boxes and making sure things get done, following up and accomplishing those goals. But one of our presidents described leadership this way when he said, if your actions inspire others to dream more, learn more, do more, and become more, you're a leader. And isn't that what we all want to be? And there's a lot of different theories about it, but most of them center around self-awareness. And I don't know, has anybody in the room ever taken the Myers-Briggs assessment evaluation? It consists of about 100 questions that seems like they're asking you the same question 5 different times, just switching one little word. But a lot of employers and schools use this assessment to, before you get the job or before you're accepted into their school, and they want to see how you interact with people. The test really looks at 4 different dichotomies, and from that, they're able to come up with about 16 different personality types. When I took it, it came back, and you get this great, big, huge report for them to tell you who you are. And stuff. The first set of questions, the first dichotomy is the way you direct and receive energy. And of course, that's going to be an introversion or extroversion. The second one is the way you take in information. And it's sensing versus intuition. When you're sensing, you're focusing on what you perceive and using your 5 senses. When you have intuition, you're really looking at the big picture and how things all work together. And it seems kind of odd, but they do work in direct opposite ways. The third dichotomy is the way you decide and come to conclusions. Some people think things and base everything on logic, accuracy, and have an objective conclusion. And other people feel it. And it's based on social situations and how that my conclusion is going to make how people are going to feel and the social situations involved with it. And the final approach is how you see the outside world. Are you judging or perceiving? And judging might not be what you think so much. Judging is really coming to conclusions, quick conclusions, moving on, and moving on from that conclusion to activate your plan. Perceiving, you really need more information, and more information comes in, you kind of swerve and go. And those are the 4 dichotomies. From that, there's 16 different personality types. When I took it, would you not believe that I'm an introvert? Who would have guessed, right? But it's important to know these things because I can learn how to work around that. Toastmasters is what I use to get over my introversion. Some people are extroverts and they're fantastic. I wish I could be an extrovert, but extroverts have to look when they're trying to sell something to an introvert. I just want to hide under a rock and leave me alone. You're too much for me. The way you look at information, intuition, I always have to see the big picture on things. When somebody says, hey, you know what, just go out, take a walk it off. And I have to sit there and ask, why would I walk it off? How is that going to help me? Just stuff. Instead of the person that's sensing, it's just going to go out, enjoy the walk, smell the roses, and enjoy life. There's 2 different people there, but for some reason I get stuck in that intuition where I have to know why would I want to do a bit walk. As far as the way we come to conclusions, I'm a thinker versus a feeler. Coming up to conclusions and logic, probably based on my job because I have to use numbers all the time. And these things change as life goes on. Hopefully someday I'll become a little bit more feeling. That's something I have to work about. When I come to my conclusions, how do people feel about those conclusions and how am I making them feel when I have my plan? And finally, the judging and perceiving, I'm actually one of the people that judges more. I come to a quick conclusion and go on, whereas I'm not as flexible as other people. So I have to kind of learn to lower my expectations or lower my thought process so that I can let other people come up with different ideas and react to those ideas and see how they work. Really understanding your Myers-Briggs test or just being self-awareness of all of these different personality types is good for you. It's good for the people around you. And presidents often use this. Anytime a president or a leader, the best advice you can give them is just be proud of what you do, because if you read it in the paper, you don't want to be embarrassed the next day. Be self-aware. Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you. I would like to call for a timers report now. Jen?
Yes, all 3 of our speakers did qualify today. Les came in at 5:22, Jill at 6:28, and Tracy at 6:09. Thank you.
Okay. Now I would like to tell you about another president, John Tyler, who was our 10th president, served from 1841 to 45. He was born March 29th, 1790, at the Greenway Plantation in Virginia. Some people call him the accidental president, since he was the vice presidential candidate with William Henry Harrison, who was, their slogan was Tippy Canoe and Tyler too. Harrison got the name because he won a battle at Tippecanoe in Indiana. However, William Henry Harrison gave a very lengthy inaugural address, and they say it was in inclement weather. He got pneumonia and was only president for 1 month before he passed away, and Tyler took over. Tyler had political experience since he was a representative from Virginia, a senator, and also the governor of Virginia. And he went to William and Mary. During his time as president, Texas, when it was annexed, and he actually was the first president to take over after the death of his predecessor. He was in the Whig Party. At one time, it was brought up, some impeachment resolutions were brought up, since they said that he misused his veto power. However, the charges were dropped. He had a very large family. He had 15 children with his 2 wives. He passed away in the Exchange Hotel in Richmond, January 18th, 1862. His quote is, "Wealth can only be accumulated by the earning of industry and savings of frugality." Now we can go on to the evaluation portion of our meeting. And Len, would you like to evaluate Les?
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster. And thank you, Les, for stepping up with a hip pocket speech. Always different, difficult, but it's something experienced Toastmasters should not be afraid to do. If you have the seed, the germ of an idea that you want to convey, and 3 solid points that you can talk about, you should be able to come up here on no notice and give a speech. That is the epitome of what being a successful Toastmaster is, in my opinion. So Les, you came up here and you displayed your typical confidence. Your pacing was perfect. You even had gestures moving, which are things that are a given with you, things we've come to expect. Your pronunciation was good. Your volume was good. You were a comfortable speaker to listen to. And that's essential, because as you said, to be an effective speaker, you have to bring these skills to the table. Couple things you might work on. You had a different camera angle this week, and it was a little bit distracting. It was coming up at an angle and pointing toward the ceiling. Normally, it's more dead straight on with the camera and framed better. It made it difficult for you to make eye contact because you had to be looking over the side there. Even as you were talking about eye contact, I think you were looking at a different part of the screen than where the camera actually was. So that was a little bit distracting. One other thing I've noticed with your speeches, you tend to let cliches creep in a lot. One in particular, win-win across the board, and 2 or 3 other ones that you tend to use over and over again. Be conscious of those. Try and find alternative words to convey that message rather than the cliches, because those can be a little distracting after a while. As I mentioned, you were using your hands, you were using gestures, trying to bring the audience into the speech, and that was very effective. And you made a lot of very solid points on how to be effective in your presentation, and for that you're to be commended. Thank you, Les. Madam Toastmaster.
Now I would like to call on Nancy Ferry, who is evaluating Jill. Nancy.
Thank you again, Madam Toastmaster. It was a privilege to evaluate Jill this morning. Was it kind of exciting because I've always been a little bit interested in quilting, and I didn't realize it was so easy when you do it together. What a great inspiration for all of us. What you really did well was to, there you go, there's one for you. You surrounded yourself with lots of visuals, including your vest. I love the title was kind of a double entendre. It pulled us into the world of giving, volunteering, and warmth. Not only the warmth of the quilts, but the warmth that we get from giving and also working together. You used the headset, thank you, that always is helpful, and you sat up early and you stood out in front of the lectern. It would have been really awkward to stand up here with quilts behind the lectern, so I'm glad that you brought some with you and held them up. You spoke with confidence. One thing you could do is expand the invitation to people who don't sew, but broaden it to an invitation to volunteer in whatever capacity works for you. Because I know there are some people who enjoy sewing, so you pulled me into that idea. But I'm sure there were other people who said sewing, not gonna do it. Cut fabric? Okay, maybe, there you go. But just expanding it so that the idea of the warmth of volunteering and what you give back to the community might be something that would help inspire the audience a little bit more. It was so helpful to hear some of the places that you've given your articles to, and I've been participants in programs, working or volunteering in programs where you have donated your items, and just knowing the warmth that went into that to create that and to give to other people. You were well prepared, and I think it was a great speech, and you were confident, and I thank you very much for sharing that with us, and you inspired me.
Now I'd like to call upon Mike Licata, who is evaluating Tracy. Mike.
Thank you. Good morning again, fellow Toastmasters, and especially Tracy. Tracy, I want to thank you for giving this speech. It's in every pathway. It is going forward, so we're all going to have to give this speech. And I have to give you credit because it takes a lot of patience to be self-reflective. So the way you went through every line, and it helped explain the test, it helped explain how you came to figure out that you're more introverted than most people think. I know when I took the test, I was a lot more introverted than I thought I was. So I want to thank you for sharing your own personal experiences. And in sitting and thinking about it and listening to your speech, I have figured out that yours and the test itself is actually a great example of our Toastmasters journey. because you explained you came here fearful as all get out about speaking in front of people, and now you're able to take the test. No, you're introverted, but you're comfortable with that, and you're comfortable speaking in front of any audience. I think you did a great job behind the lectern. Great contact with both online and with everyone here in the room. I want to thank you for the speech. I want to wish you good luck going forward. I know Pathways is a little bit different for every person. You did a great job. And that is all I have this morning, Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you. Now, Jen, how did our evaluators do on time?
All three of the evaluators did qualify today, Mike with the buffer. So we had Len coming in at 2:35, Nancy at 2:26, and Mike at 1:41. Thank you.
Thank you. The last March president I would like to speak about, it has local connections. It's Grover Cleveland, who was the 22nd and the 24th president. He served from 1885 to 89 in his first term, and his second was 1893 to 97. And he was the only one to serve non-consecutive 2 terms. He was the sheriff of Erie County, and actually at the time he personally hung 2 murderers. He could have delegated it, but he did it himself. He was the mayor of Buffalo and the governor of New York State. He had a couple things happen. The Panic of 1893, which was headed toward a depression. And there was the Pullman strike, which he had to serve an injunction because the train is what brought the mail, and he didn't want the mail to be delayed. And actually, conscription had started when he was a young man. However, he didn't serve because there was a way of getting out of it just by paying a substitute to serve for you. He had a little scandal of them claiming that he had although he was married and had 4 children, that there was a child that he had with a Maria Halpin. And he did have the first child that was born at the White House. He started in his presidency the plan to secede or bring in the states of North Dakota, South Dakota, Montana, and Washington. This happened after Benjamin Harrison took over, but it was Cleveland had a lot to do with it. Now, locally, Grover Cleveland Hall at Buff State is named for him. There's a Grover Cleveland High School. And I don't know if everyone is aware, but part of Millersport Highway, Route 263, from Eckerd to Bailey and Amherst is named Grover Cleveland Highway. He had been born at March 18th, 1837, and he died in Princeton, New Jersey, June 24th, 1908. His quote is, "I have tried so hard to do right." Now I would like to call on our general evaluator, Steve Smith. Steve.
Thank you. Well, it's been an interesting meeting today. And I did not get introduced earlier, but that was right when we were having this big snafu, which is part of my report because things happened and it was handled, I thought, very smoothly. Dr. Stevens jumped up and kept the meeting running until she was able to get back online. And was right in the middle of that, which probably when I should have been introduced as the general evaluator, but because of all that, I'm gonna give that a pass. They handled it, they kept the meeting running, and that was very good. One of the two jobs I have is to evaluate the evaluators. So we'll start with that. Now, Len, I thought gave a very good evaluation, and I loved the way he phrased that. Because it's not only applicable to what Les had to do this morning, to what we all have to do. You take a germ of an idea and you turn that into a speech. Now, if you got the whole week to work on it, that makes it easy. You get an idea. Now, just keep working at it, making a speech. Now, to do it is a hip pocket speech. That ups the ante a lot. And Les was able to do that, but that's not my job to evaluate him, it's the evaluators. And Len caught on to that and gave him credit for that. He found ways to improve, as did all the evaluators, found ways to improve, and that's what this is all about. We all can improve on something. Sometimes it's hard to find those little somethings, but that's the job of the evaluator to look for them, and they did. Now, the meeting itself went quite well, despite the little problems. She had a lot of good background information about presidents that we don't normally hear a lot about. So I thought it was a very interesting choice of topic for the day. So I thought overall the meeting, in spite of it, I thought went very well, and we're still well within time parameters. Would you like me to call for reports, Madam Toastmaster?
Yes.
That's a yes, okay. Well, let's start with our Master and Grammarian, Dave Licata. You come up here and share your knowledge with us.
Thank you, Mr. General Evaluator. First, a brief disclaimer. I am not being harsh on the Oz today. It's going to sound harsh, but the disclaimer is they adjusted my hearing aids and I could actually hear everything, which was quite a jolt. Carol Ann, you did have more than 5. And David Jones had 1 ah. Len had a little tiny one, Len. It's a hearing aid, Len. I don't mean to pick on you. All right. Nancy, 5 on the nose. And now we're going to do a little grammar report, but this is only praise to balance my harshness of the O's. Oh, no, it's not. I'm sorry. Thomas Haldwine, and I meant to say this up front, but I mentioned it previous times when I had the opportunity, is that the use of to in our language here in Western New York has changed to ta, and it's driving me nuts. So Thomas had a ta instead of a to. Carol Ann had a ta instead of a to. And Jill, we're going to do you a big favor today because you did excellent today. You were excellent, but just say these. Don't say these ones. And Nancy, we want to give you credit for double entendre. I enjoyed double entendre because in the words of the late, great Mae West, the nice thing about double entendre is it can only mean one thing. So I enjoyed that. That's the report. Thank you very much, Mr. General Evaluator.
Thank you, Dave. Now it's time to see if we have been paying attention. I'm going to call on our quiz master, Mike Florio. Are you there, Mike?
Yes, I am. Thank you. Oop, that was a little too loud. This was an interesting meeting because I feel like I'm a history teacher giving a quiz here. So we'll start right out with Phil. And In what year was King Kong made? 1933. Why is March a good month for snow to fill?
Maxwell. Maxwell.
Good packing.
Good packing. That's right. That's right. Let's see. Let's go to Margot. What was her favorite book?
Little house.
The Little House. I was kind of like a green eggs and ham guy. But Little House is okay too. How many acres is Margot's farm?
500.
500. And what is the average in Puerto Rico? 15. Pretty small. Pretty small. Okay, now we know that there are 4 presidents here, okay? And I won't ask you to name them, but I will ask you to let me know who was the shortest one. Madison. Anybody have a guess at as to how tall?
Or was it?
Sure. 5'4". Yeah. Wow. So what president was the most prolific with children and wives? Which one got around the most?
Grover Cleveland got around.
Did he?
No, it wasn't him.
Wasn't him?
Wow, the last one she talked about.
Wasn't the last one. Good old Johnny Tyler. Johnny got around.
15 kids.
15 children and 2 wives. 2 wives. I didn't realize that that was a thing, but apparently it was. All right, we all know Grover Cleveland, but he was president. But what other 2 jobs did he hold?
Mayor of Buffalo, the governor of New York.
There you go. Jill, how long does it take Jill to sew the top? This is the top of a quilt. How long?
At least 3 hours.
At least 3 hours. I've done marathons in less. So good for you. That's it. I have more, but it's been fun. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Now, let's see how our word of the day did, Nancy.
Thank you. Well, I don't think the word of the day did very well. Being a simple word, I thought it was going to do better. I'm going to say David Jones, thank you, and Les, thank you for sticking it in. And then Gerald used it. Other than that, Mike used it. And my recommendation is to start using the word of the day to challenge yourself, because that's why we're here. Thank you very much.
Well, this has been an invigorating meeting. So now I'll turn it over to Dr. Gerald to close it out.
I can do 5 minutes on Grover Cleveland.
Dave will save the 5-minute speech for Grover Cleveland for another day. We want to make sure you have lots of material, not that you're lacking in that area. Just one more announcement. Kate is doing the Zoom meeting tonight, 7, I think it was, 7 to 8. And anybody who needs to do an extra speech, you can join her for the evening and she'll evaluate, and that way you can reach our goals, whatever they might be in regards to Toastmasters. Also, dues are due. Did want to add that on for the treasurer. So please send in your check to Beth.
Gerald,
Yes, ma'am.
can I please request that people pay by the 23rd, because my surgery is the 24th.
Okay.
So if people could pay by then, I would appreciate it. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. And we do have some winners today. Drum roll, please. All right. Our best table topics is Margot. Good job, Margot. Yay. Our best evaluator is Nancy Ferry. You can get your ribbon, Nancy, if you don't. Yes. There you go. There you go. And our best speaker is Jill Roaring. Good job, Jill. Collusion. That was fun. There you go. What do we got here?
3, 4, 5.
3, 4, 5. Anybody?
Check, let me check. 6, 9, 2.
6,
6, a 9 and a 2.
Oh, Dave Licata, the winner. And the money's on the table in front of you there, Dave. So,
Don't you want me to come up?
sure, you can come up if you would like and get a handshake. Absolutely.
One quick one. Grover Cleveland's second wife was from where?
Hollywood.
Medina, New York.
Where?
Medina.
I knew you'd get it. Thanks, boss.
You're welcome.
A wealth of information here at Toastmasters. Any other announcements or anything else that just came up, someone can think of? If not, I'd like to call the meeting to adjourned.
It's mine.